Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for taking the time out to attend our El Nino Preparedness Strategy Plan meeting. This presentation should take about 20 minutes and about 20 to 25 minutes afterwards for any questions and answers that you may have. I first like to introduce myself. My name is Aaliyah Rodriguez. I'm the Emergency Management Program Manager here for the City of Moreno Valley. In a nutshell, it's my job to ensure that the community, the residents, the businesses, and city staff are all prepared to respond, prepare, mitigate, and recover from emergencies here in the city. So today we'll be focusing on El Nino, but I'd first like to acknowledge Mayor Jesse Molina for joining us in the room today. Thank you, Mayor, for taking the time to be here. Candace Castle, she's our Special Districts Division Manager. She's also been appointed by the City Manager's Office as our El Nino Public Information Officer. So anything specific for El Nino preparedness, response, or recovery will be directed towards Candace for media relations. And then I have a panel of experts here that I'd like for them to take a moment to introduce themselves.
Alan Brock, I'm the Community Development Director.
I'm Mark Williams, Battalion Chief here in the City of Moreno Valley for the operations.
I'm Robert Lemon, Maintenance and Operations Division Manager with the Public Works Department.
And Joey Nardone with Moreno Valley PD.
Thank you so much. So we'll go ahead and get started with the strategy plan. You guys can see that here on the PowerPoint. So very quickly, an overview of what El Nino is. A lot of people have a misnomer about what it is and what it isn't, and just in a very quick understanding of what El Nino is. Basically, what's going to happen is that the jet stream is going to hit Southern California, which, according to NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, I'm sorry, I get the letters confused. They say it's 100% certain that the El Nino will hit us. Now, what those impacts are going to be to us, the ramifications, remain to be seen. We don't know what it's going to bring for us, but we can anticipate it'll bring a lot of rain. What this will mean is that there's going to be more frequent rain for longer periods of time in the city. And if you've been a resident in the city, if you have a business in the city, if you've been here for a while, you understand that we do have a lot of rain events in the city in flood-prone areas. July 19th is a trigger point from this year where we saw a significant amount of flooding throughout the city. Another date that stands out, I believe, is August 30th of 2012, where there was significant amounts of rain. But beyond that, even just a short amount of rainfall in a short amount of time can bring some hazards to the city. So that's basically what El Nino is. We're going to have more storm cells coming through, and more rainfall in the city of Moreno Valley. This is just some pictures to show you around the community. I believe this is off of Cedar. Is that correct, Robert? One of these, they're around Cedar area of Moreno Valley. These are some of the incidents that Public Works, Fire Department, law enforcement have all responded to in previous months and years as a result of rain, a typical rainy season here in the city of Moreno Valley. So I wanted to put those in there to give you a little bit of scope of what we may be faced with when the rain actually hits. So for the strategy, what this means. At the direction of the city manager, she has declared that the city of Moreno Valley will be the most prepared city in California for this upcoming El Nino season. And I do want to emphasize we are talking about preparedness at this point. We're not talking about response and recovery. We don't know what's going to happen. All we can do is prepare ourselves as city staff, prepare the residents, and prepare the business owners. What this means is that we've approached this in a multi-departmental, as you can see here to my left, a multi-departmental and multi-phased approach. This means that we've gotten together as the fire department, public works, law enforcement agencies, and community development to talk about what does this mean? How do we prepare this? We have this idea and we have this mission we have to fulfill about being the most prepared. What do we need to do to execute that plan and make sure that we are prepared? The preparedness and mitigation phase is this, what we're doing right now, community outreach, informing the public what we're faced with, what are the ramifications, and what can we do as residents and business owners to prepare for that. And we will get into detail what that exactly means. The response component of things will be once the rain hits, what kind of incidents are we faced with? Are we faced with mudslides? If you look to the north where we have some of the mountain areas, there's not a lot of vegetation there, and that's largely attributed to the drought. We don't have rainfall, we don't have grass there, we don't have vegetation, so it's going to accumulate mud. So once the rain starts to hit, some of that mud starts to slide into residential properties, and we want to try to mitigate that before it happens. So response is that responding to any flood emergencies. We'll get into it a little bit later, but for the fire department, responding to swift water rescues, a lot of times people don't adhere to signs, road closure signs, and they try to drive through those areas, which is very dangerous, first and foremost, to yourself and your family, but it does cause quite a response from the fire department, law enforcement side to extricate the victim out of a water rescue. And then after the incident has occurred, after we have all this rain, after everything happens, we still have the recovery component of things. And if you think about any kind of emergency in American history in the past 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, they're recovering from those kind of incidents years past when the event has hit. So that's something we're going to be looking at as well. So the interdepartmental coordination, we've developed this extensive plan, again, with the folks that you see here to my left. It wasn't just them, as we also have been incorporating the Technology Services Division, because we are at a day and age of technology. We need to make sure that we're apt in those areas. Financial department, we've been working with a lot of departments to make sure that this plan is followed and that we've covered all of our bases. The departments, again, is Public Works. Robert's here from the Public Works Department. His division is the Maintenance and Operations Division. So his staff, him and his staff are the folks that are actually the ones cleaning the streets, trimming the trees, making sure the streets are passable. Those are the kinds of things that he's doing. Obviously, the fire department is responding to calls for service, 911 calls, emergency calls. Law enforcement are constantly dealing with any type of law enforcement issues. And community development, we'll talk a little bit about what that means for code enforcement and building and safety. So Public Works, what are they doing? So if you may not be aware of this, we have about 2,400 publicly owned, city-owned storm drain systems in the city of Moreno Valley. Public Works has been very proactive in the inspection and abatement of those 2,400 drainages. So of the 2,400, I believe, and let me know, Robert, if my numbers aren't right, I want to say there was 120 drainages that were requiring abatement, which means that the other ones were properly abated. Some of them, there could have been debris in there that have fallen through for whatever reason. There was 120 that they identified that they needed to have abated. So they've been proactive. I believe they have an October 31st deadline of getting those properties abated. So we'll be in 100%, those storm drains will be 100% abated by the end of the month, which is a great thing for the city of Moreno Valley. What that'll do is that'll allow the water to properly flow so it doesn't get backed up. Now, that's not to say that as we get the first rain event that comes through, there could be more debris that falls in there, so it's going to be a continuous effort. It's going to be a revolving door, but at least for right now, in the preparedness component, when the first storm hits, we'll see what that brings to us and how much work will have to be done to recover that and get those drainages back on course for the water to flow freely. The second component is the inspection and assessment of privately owned drainage infrastructure. The city was proactive and went out through our land development division. They inspected approximately 900 privately owned properties that are considered hotspots for their drainages. They went out there, inspected the properties, got to take a look at them and say, can you abate your properties if they need abating? If not, we can have our folks get in there and abate those properties for you. Of course, we'll have to recoup those costs, but at least we can provide that service to the residents of Moreno Valley. Again, allowing that water to flow freely when the storms do hit. So of those 900 inspections that they did complete, I believe 2 weeks ago, there was around 90 to 100 of those properties that were going to need abatement, and some of them requiring some kind of a special contract or a special skill set to remove some of those or to abate those properties. Sandbags. Has anyone been by our fire stations or the city yard yet to get sandbags? Yes. Okay, so we'll address that. So here's the plan. The sandbag operations, we've been proactive, again, with Public Works and the fire department to acquire hopefully up to 50,000 sandbags for the residents and business owners to come and take. They are pre-filled this year, so they are heavy. Our goal is to have 1,500 at each fire station, with the exception of Fire Station 65. 65 is the one off of Kennedy Park, and the reason we don't have them there as pre-filled is because it doesn't have a secure location. The gate doesn't secure the sandbags, so we want to keep those sandbags available to residents. We don't want anyone else coming to take those bags. So that's the goal, 1,500 per fire station. We do have the roll of sandbags that are unfilled that are also available to the residents as well and the business owners. You mentioned something about the going to the fire stations and they may not be there. What we're trying to see now is trying to assess. Now, how much are we going to need? Are the public really going to come and take these bags? We don't want to over inundate the stations and then nobody comes and takes them. What we have found is both Fire Station 48, which is the station off of Sunnymead Ranch, and Fire Station 2, which is off of Sunnymead and Heacock, they have depleted resources much quicker than we had anticipated. So Robert and I have worked together to have every Monday we're having a delivery sent out for those sandbags to be replenished. So if you had gone to the fire stations and there hadn't been any there, I apologize for that, but also understand that there is a little bit of process. We ask the public for a little bit of patience too. As we get the phone calls from the fire stations that the resources are depleting, Robert and I work together, try to figure out how many do we need. Do we need to up the number of sandbags that need to be at the fire stations? And we get them there within a day or two. So there is a little bit of a turnaround time, and if there's inconvenience, I do apologize. But there is also made available the sandbags at the city yard, the pre-filled sandbags, which is off of Paris Boulevard by the Home Depot. So those are there. I think they have a little bit more quantity there because they have a bigger facility to store the bags. But again, it's contingent on how long those supplies last. Also remembering that we do have the role of unfilled sandbags. It is a little bit more labor intensive, but we do have, I believe, 3 locations within the city. Fire Station 2, which is off of Sunnymead, Fire Station 58, which is off of Moreno Beach in the 60, and Parks and Recreation, Robert, is that correct?
Yeah, we have you're talking about for loose sand.
Loose sand, right.
We have the lot that is just to the west of the CRC.
Okay.
And then we also have the post office located at Alessandro and Redlands.
So Alessandro and Redlands for the post office is where we have the piles of loose sand, and also just west of the community, or the Conference and Recreation Center, so that you can get the bags and you can fill them yourself, but there is that availability there as well. We've also upped the increased amount that citizens and residents can take from 25 to 50. So now each household is allowed to take 50 pre-filled or unfilled sandbags per household. The firefighters at the fire stations and at the city yard are requiring that you do sign out so we can allocate for those, take account for those sandbags. We don't want to just give them out and not keep track of how many we've purchased and given to the public. So we're working on making sure that they're properly stocked all the time. What we're finding is between Friday night and Saturday is when they're actually going quicker. So we are working on that. On Mondays, we plan it to be our drop-off time to get those supplies replenished. Okay? Moving on with the preparedness efforts from the fire department, one of the primary tasks that the fire department has taken on is developing the entire plan and organizing all the departments to come together to let's talk. We're all here for the same mission. We're here to serve the public. We're here to serve you. We're here to serve the residents and business owners, and we want to do just that. So the fire department's taken the lead on the communications and coordination, making sure that we're meeting and that we're utilizing that time wisely to talk about the issues at hand. We've had a community forum last week, and we've been talking to the public on various locations. We're taking in some of that input. People are coming to us with information. Okay, what about this or what about that? It's not falling on deaf ears, I assure you. We're taking everything that the public is saying to us very seriously, and we're looking into everything that they're bringing forth to us. So the interdepartmental coordination is huge. Bringing Candace on board from the special districts realm to be identified as a public information officer specifically for this event is a big deal. It shows our level of commitment and dedication to the program and making sure that we are prepared. Volunteer outreach. We have, I believe, just over 200,000 people in the city of Moreno Valley. We have 7 fire stations, which I think comes down to about 70 personnel total. Is that correct, Chief Williams?
69.
69 staff members, firefighters and personnel. Law enforcement, how many officers do we have? 150 officers. So if you do the math, you have 150 officers, 70, and these aren't public safety officials that are on at one time. These are just as a rotational schedule. These are how many we have staffed comprehensively. You compare that to a city, the second largest city in Riverside County of over 200,000 people. Calls for service are going to far outweigh the resources that we do have. So we understand volunteer outreach is huge. We've gone out and done press releases, talked to people, say, we need help. We need volunteers to come and help us, whether that's helping us pre-position sandbags. We've also developed in our emergency management department, we've developed damage assessment teams as a volunteer basis. The point of those is to do a rapid damage assessment on properties. So if you call for service and say my house is, impacted, we'll send someone out there on a volunteer basis. We'll take some pictures, take your information down so there's that city to resident interface, and then we'll pass that information along to the community development department and ultimately the building and safety department to go out there and inspect your property post-event. So the whole point of that was to get volunteers on board because we know we're not going to be able to do everything by ourselves. We need that coordination between the city staff and the public and volunteers to fulfill our mission. Next, we have the city staff and volunteer training. We've been training city staff we've been drilling, exercising. We've held one-on-one sessions with our city council members trying to get them acclimated to the training that they need. How do we respond in an emergency setting? We all have our day-to-day jobs. We're business as usual, here to serve the public. But when the emergency hits, how does our roles change? What do we do? How do we respond? How does that affect our day-to-day jobs? So we've been training our city staff as well on those procedures. This is how we respond to an emergency incident. We've also been training those volunteers in the damage assessment and sandbagging operations. I believe we have about 15 to 20 volunteers that have signed up with our emergency management department right now. Field and incident communications between city and fire responders. This has been a big one in terms of internal coordination. When we have calls for service, has anyone actually been impacted by the flooding here in the city before? Okay, so you have, did the fire department come out or Public Works come out? Or did you call for service to have them come out?
We did afterwards.
You did afterwards?
Right, not during the actual flooding.
Okay, so if there's, I would encourage you, before I get on to the next point, I would encourage you, if there's a life-threatening emergency during the flooding event, you always want to call 911, have your address ready so that the fire department, ambulance company, or law enforcement can come to your residence. But if it's a non-life-threatening emergency, you can always call our Public Works Department to come out as it's storm-related incident. What we're trying to do, and what we find, is that when we have those flooding incidents, the fire department often gets called. People call 911 because to you it is an emergency. The water's coming into your home, it's flooding your home, you do call 911, they're gonna respond to your house. But conjointly, Public Works can also be responding out there. What I'm trying to do and what we're trying to do is increase the communication between the two departments. And without getting too technical, there's different radio systems and it's not easy to marry those up. So we're trying to figure out a way, how do we get these two departments to be able to talk together to efficiently and effectively respond to each and every incident in the city without, running past each other, or did you respond here or I responded here? So we want everyone to be responding together. So that's the point of that bullet right there, is to have communications not only in line of sight and radio communications, but actually going from property to property. And I have to say, I'm very impressed with the coordination that's happened with the group that's here at the table and their staff as well. We've been having a lot of operational type meetings, and not necessarily the high level meetings, but the boots on the ground. When the rain is actually here, what are we gonna do and how are we responding? And it's gone, in my opinion, it's gone very well. We've had meetings this past week, in fact. One of the other things that we've developed is a call center. And we have it's called a Department Operations Center, but it serves as a call center. We're trying to streamline the process for which if you call the city for you call the city for information or needing response any time of day, we're trying to get that one phone number staffed with people that we can answer the phone on the other end and be that voice on the other end when the events hit in the emergency situation. So the rain hits, you have something going on, we're gonna be monitoring the weather. That's kind of the good thing about the flooding events, is it's predicted. We know they're going to happen. It's not like an earthquake where we have no, predictability. So we can get staff on board. We have, and we'll talk about staff in a little bit, get staff on board, get them into our call center. We have outfitted our Department Operations Center with, phones. We've got, new fiber optics put in. We've got laptops that we've utilized to put in there. So we've utilized the space that we have so that we can streamline the process so that when you call for service, someone's going to be there at the other end of the phone, taking down your information. You get a live body, not a recording. Community outreach, this is the biggest part here, is the community outreach, hearing what we have to say, answering your questions. What we've done is we've developed a web page within our www.moval.org website. We've spent a lot of time on it, and it is just about finished. There's just a couple kinks we're trying to put in there. This video that they're taping tonight, they're videoing this for the folks that can't be here, that want to hear what we have to say and what the plan is and the preparedness strategy. We're going to be posting that on our web page. I would anticipate the web page being live by the end of the week. So we developed that. Social media has been huge. Anybody have Facebook, Twitter? I think you all probably do, right? No one wants to raise their hand. I'm not going to force you to do anything, but if you do have it, I would encourage you to go on the city's Facebook page. I believe it's Moreno Valley City Hall. Is that correct? Moreno Valley City Hall. Go on the Facebook page. They don't post a lot, but they post good, important information, advertising this forum, some kind of things. We might utilize that, too, if we have some kind of emergency message to send out as well. I just learned today, actually, that the city has an Instagram page. So if you're on Instagram, you can go to City of Moreno Valley and look there. I had no idea we had one. It was pretty interesting to see some of the pictures on there. Nextdoor.com. We also have Nextdoor.com. Is anyone on Nextdoor.com? Okay, so a lot of you are on Nextdoor.com. Go on Nextdoor.com. We're going to be posting information there as we get it, live information. The forums, this is exactly what we're doing here. This is our second of our third forum. We will be having another community forum on Saturday, November 7th at 10 a.m., from 10 to 12, but 10 to 11 really, at the Senior Center. So for those folks that can't make it during the week or at night, Saturday is another option. Alert Moval. I'm personally very excited about this one. This is the city's first reverse 911 system. I don't know if you're familiar with what that is, but usually you call 911 when you're having an emergency. This is basically the emergency calling you, telling you what's going on and what you can do. My plan to utilize this system is if we have a large area that's impacted by rain, by flood, by mudslides, I can go on to my system, draw a map, send a message to those that are registered and say, your area is going to be evacuated, here's where you need to go. It's the quickest, most effective way to get the information out there. Currently, we have about 45,000 records in the system that are registered. I'd love for everyone to get on to our website, moval.org/or/alert. Register your cell phones. You know, we're not going to be advertising anything other than just emergency information, and it's usually in the time of an emergency, not preparedness efforts. This was a system that I acquired grant money to purchase. We used Department of Homeland Security grant monies to purchase this system. Press releases, you might have seen press releases advertising for volunteers, advertising that we have sandbags now available, advertising this community forum, so we're using that as well. I believe on our webpage, and someone correct me, city staff correct me, on our webpage, I believe you can sign up for some kind of an email distribution list. Is that right, Candace? Do you know where on the website that is? Okay, there is a place on our webpage, and Candace is going to look it up for us, where you can sign up to be on our newsletters. So if we want to get that information electronically, you can sign up for that, and we'll get you that information in just a second. Local cooperators, we've also been working with the school districts, with the utility companies, with nonprofit organizations, faith-based organizations. We've been doing a huge outreach to these people, and we haven't hit everybody yet, but these organizations, to see how can we partner and how can we work together if this happens and we do have a large-scale emergency as a result of El Nino. How can we work together as a community? Nonprofit organizations is huge. They, you know, can provide food, shelter, clothing, whatever it is that's needed to serve the public. We're developing a newsletter to send out to all the homeowners associations. I believe we have 34, probably more than that. We have 34 homeowners associations that we're working with. We're going to be doing what we call a road show. We're going to be doing this for some of the, not you guys, I'll do it. They're looking at me like, how many are we doing? I'm going to be doing presentations for homeowners association, a much condensed version of this, but still getting the word out there. This is what we're doing. This is what we have available. And then the MVTV3, which is exactly what's happening here. They're videotaping this presentation to put on our webpage to showcase on MVTV3. If you ever wait in City Hall, hopefully the goal is to put it on there too so people can hear what the city has to say. Great, she has it. Okay, so if you were to go to the moval.org webpage, all the way on the top right, there's a How Do I section, and right underneath that tab, it says Stay Informed. And you can sign up for newsletters and social media, anything you want. It's right there on this upper right-hand side. Okay, and if you have any questions afterward, I'd be happy to show you. Thank you, Candace. So that's some of the community outreach we've been doing. Resources and coordination. Now, this is where the rubber meets the road, right? This is when we start getting the rain. What does this really mean? What we've been doing is, as departments here, we've been identifying staff. So, you know, the city staff traditionally, in people's eyes, we work, 8 to 5, we go home. For this panel here, our staff and emergency responders, public safety officials, that's not the case. We're working constantly 24/7 behind the scenes, coordinating and getting the city prepared. What this specifically means as far as emergency staff, you see some of the divisions in there, and I won't read them all, but the maintenance and operation, fire administration, emergency management, police department, land development, those are the staff we're pulling from and drawing from to respond after hours. So when that rain hits 2 o'clock in the morning on Friday night or Super Bowl Sunday, somebody's still got to come to work. Somebody still has to be here to serve the public and make sure that your phone calls are getting answered and your calls for service are getting answered. So we've developed a list of those after-hours contacts. We have it on a rotational basis. We have, these folks here are available, these folks here are available. How are we going to rotate them out when we get those calls for service and we need to respond back to our department operations center? So we are looking at that as well. Public Works has taken a lead on this one here, initiating the open contracts for auxiliary storm response support. So this is going to require a lot of additional equipment far beyond the capabilities and cache of equipment that we have here in the city. So Public Works has been proactive and said we need to find some other types of equipment out there and vendors out there that can respond to us as needed. Robert, what are some examples of some of that auxiliary equipment?
We have two categories. We do have additional rental equipment that we are utilizing right now for our preparedness, and that we have at the city yard. Those are things like additional dump trucks, a loader, a grader, things of that sort. And then separate and apart from that, the storm response support contracts would be for personnel and equipment to be able to respond. So those are your typical public works contractors that you see working on streets, being able to respond in an emergency.
So that's just the type of the open contracts that Public Works has initiated as far as auxiliary equipment. We've assessed the situation, we've looked, what could this possibly mean, learned from past storms, what could this mean? And those are the types of equipment that he's got on board to serve the public. Coordinating with other agency facilities to correct observed problems, working with Riverside County Flood Control, TLMA from the county's emergency management department. I know specifically the fire chief, and I do apologize, Chief Ahmad, I didn't acknowledge your presence in the beginning. The fire chief is with us. Thank you for being here. We've also met with Riverside County Emergency Management Department to address some specific needs. Ritchie Canyon area, it's not technically in the city, but we know it's county area and it does affect the city. So working with them, trying to figure out, well, what happens in these areas? How do we get these roadways cleared out, in a timely manner? That also affects our first responders from being able to get in there and serve the public as well. We have the Box Springs area. We have a lot of areas in here and that are the county area, but they do affect the city. So we are looking at those areas as well to see how we can communicate and coordinate with the county and to get those problems mitigated when they do occur. Public Works is no stranger. I'm not going to read every bullet point here because they are no stranger to response. They are first responders side by side with the public safety folks here from the fire and law enforcement agencies. These are some of the things that they do when the storm hits. These are the type of response efforts that they have. They storm drain clearing, and I won't read them all again. Tree trimming, provision of placement of K-rail, grading, those kinds of things are what they respond to that's in the public right of way. We want to get those roadways cleared so we can get school buses back on the road, people can get back to their houses, first responders can get to emergency calls. Those are the kinds of things that Public Works do in response to flooding events and incidents. The fire department, one of the things I do want to bring up, and I know it's very important for the battalion chief here and the fire chief that's here, is please as public, keep in mind that just because we have a flooding event or an emergency doesn't mean that normal calls for service subside. The normal calls for service are still going to be coming in, and even probably more so. Still going to have medical aid emergencies, still going to have traffic collisions, and I think there is an actual increase in traffic collisions when we do get rain. If you've ever been obviously on the freeway in the rain or even on the streets in the rain, people get a little leery about driving in the rain. There's a lot more accidents that happen. Structure fires, houses do start to burn down still. You got to remember we are coming upon the holiday season. People are starting to plug in more lights and buying different things and for their homes, so there's fire hazards. Just keep in mind that the calls for service are still going to come in. So when you call 911, you're still going to get someone to come to your home. Just bear in mind that those things are still happening. The world didn't stop just because we have some rain and some flooding going on in the city. Response to residential and commercial flooding incidents. Fire department responds to these types of calls all the time. I know on July 19th, Chief Williams was physically out there for several hours with law enforcement and Public Works, sandbagging, getting some of those properties, the right-of-way cleared, if that's correct, Chief Williams. So they respond to those kinds of emergencies, helping with the sandbags in those emergency conditions. Providing operations call center support. Like I said before, we have that department operations center where we're setting up all the phone banks. It's a room kind of like this. We just have the phones around. That way people can call in and we have everything solidified and ready to respond. The fire department's going to be offering staffing from their administrative side, emergency management side, and the fire prevention side. Also, what we'll be doing, probably what I will be doing, is preparing after-action documentation analysis. So after the first storm comes through, we're going to be looking at that. What went right, what went wrong, and what do we need to fix, and what do we need to do better? I will save you the suspense. We're not going to get it perfect every single time. There's going to be situations that are going to come up. They're obviously very dynamic. It's an emergency situation. But we are watching it, we are analyzing it, and we do want to learn from it and serve the public better because that's what we're here to do. And revise the plan as needed. So the plan consists of all the things that we've been talking about, but revise it as if we find something that's working better, we'll revise it. If we find that something isn't working so well, we'll revise it. So that's the fire department's role in the response phase. And then lastly, the assembly of the rapid damage assessment teams. We will have them identified, so there won't be strangers coming to your homes and properties. They will be identified with staff personnel. They'll have name cards, they'll have vests on. Likely what they'll be doing is interfacing with you, making sure that they have your permission to do the damage assessment. It's really for you to make sure that we're offering that service to you. Resources and coordination. One of the things that I know Robert's excited about, and I'm excited about too, is the utilization of this Maintenance and Operations GIS application. It's a fancy name for a program that was created internally by our tech services department to better serve the public in terms of calls for response. So if, on your phone, if we have an application, it's not available to the public, but it's for our internal use. It's kind of like a dispatch center, I guess you could call it, where it's got a program. You put the calls for service in there. It tags them so that the field supervisors can actually see calls for service coming in. Much parallel to the way we do it with the fire department and law enforcement agencies already. You call, someone types in the information, that information gets sent electronically somewhere else, and then the field people that are responding are the ones that are seeing that information. They can update the information from the field, and we can see it live back in our department operations center. So it's new this year. We're excited to use it. We've been training on it. We have drills coming up to make sure that we have it on there. As a backup plan, though, because it is technology, we do have maps printed out, ready for use, so we can go through and flag different locations as they start to come in and calls for service come in. Communication coordination with police and fire. This is one of the things we've not been lacking on, but we really want to make sure that we're communicating. So the way it kind of works is, obviously, fire department responds to 911s, flooding calls, people drowning, things of that nature. But if Public Works is getting a call that Alessandro's completely closed and they're closing the road and they're having law enforcement enforcing the road closure, we want to make sure that maybe the fire engines and that they know that that road is closed, because that could impact them, right? So we're trying to work on the communication of that. We'll make sure through this interdepartmental coordination that we're talking about how are we going to do these, how are we going to notify all the different agencies, how are we going to notify the school district if this happens during school hours, how are we going to notify the school district, making sure we have those contacts in place so we can get that information out live to those that are going to be affected. So that's what we're talking about with communications and coordination. Street closure requests, again, we just talked about that. Community service worker crew activation. I don't know if anyone has seen, but we utilize the CAL FIRE hand crews the past couple of weeks to abate some of our larger channel basins. Did anyone see the big buses out there abating? No? Okay, well, they did a great job. They did, 14 properties, Robert? Starting from the east end all the way to the west end. It's very labor-intensive work. So we worked closely with the CAL FIRE team to have those properties abated, those channel basins abated, and I think they're complete as of today, correct, Robert?
We've got a couple more days, but we'll be complete by the end of this week.
Okay, they'll be complete by the end of the week. So it's been a lot of work, but it's going to help that rain flow when we get there. Mutual aid agreement, I'm not sure if you're aware, we do have what's called a mutual aid agreement. What this means is that we understand we're one city and we may not have all the resources. Even with all this preparedness efforts that are taking place, there still might be a need for additional help, additional resources. So we have what's called a mutual aid agreement, and basically what that is the sharing of resources with the county. So if we can't handle the incidents that are happening within the City of Moreno Valley, and we recognize that early on and we say, you know what, we need more stuff. We've called all the emergency vendors and they're out serving all the other communities because this rain is supposed to hit Southern California, not just the City of Moreno Valley. We can call the county. We have the availability and the contracts in place to say, you know what, county, we need extra graders. Can you get us one? And the county will be able to get us one. It's not always in a timely manner because, again, they're helping all the other cities and jurisdictions, but we have the availability, and if they can't get it, they go to the region, they go to the state, so that's how the hierarchy works. And I don't want to get too much in detail. Just know we're not usually ever going to be in a bind where we don't have the resources. We can always get those resources from somewhere, and through that mutual aid agreement is kind of our fallback plan. Recruit and train and deploy volunteers. We talked about the importance of that. We have about 15 to 20. We're still always seeking more. If you want to be part of a damage assessment team, that's the training that I provide personally. Go out there. I anticipate being out there with the rest of them when the flooding occurs as well. For you folks, that's what the city's been doing for businesses and residential preparedness. Here are some things that we recommend for businesses and residential owners to do to prepare. Inspections. Inspect your properties. A lot of people don't get their roofs fixed until the day it starts raining, and by that time it's a little bit too late. You want to be proactive. Look at your roof now. If it looks like it needs to be repaired, you might want to call someone out and have that assessed. So fix your roofs now. If you have rain gutters and you notice there's debris and leaves or whatnot that's in there, get out there and clean those out now. Don't wait till the rain hits. Get them out now so that they do what they're intended to do. And then there's some other things on there too. If you have private drainage courses, if you have sloped areas, anyone have a slope in their backyard? I know I do. If you have a slope in your backyard, it might be a little bit too late to start putting plants in there now, but what you can do is get the plastic sheeting and pre-position the plastic sheeting on there with the sandbags so that the rainfall will just run right down the plastic sheeting as opposed to getting into the mud and creating a debris flow. Flood protection actions, so sandbags. Has anyone ever actually had to place sandbags or fill sandbags or utilize sandbags? So a few of you, labor intensive, yes? Pretty labor intensive. So if you do go to the fire stations and you do get the pre-filled sandbags, I do want to caution you, bring some gloves because they can tear up your hands a little bit and cause some calluses. But you want to make sure you bring a vehicle that can sustain the weight of sandbags. They're about 25 to 30 pounds a piece. Times that by 50, that's a lot of weight. So if you have to make 2 trips, that's fine, but don't bring a small vehicle. I would recommend bring a truck and, make it a family event. Bring some help. Bring some help. I will tell you that the fire stations are gracious enough to hold the sandbags there, and the hours of the fire station open to the public. We've extended past 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. So anytime between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., you can go to the fire stations. Bearing any incidents, remember, they're still serving you. They're still serving the public, running emergency calls. But go see them anytime between 8 and 8. They are not required to assist with loading those bags. That's the public's, you guys will need to do that yourselves. So just make sure, and if there's a need to assist and you need the help, of course, you can always ask, but their duty isn't to fill everybody's vehicles with 50 sandbags. They're there to serve the public in emergency situations. So when we're talking about sandbags, if you have to fill up your own sandbags, we recommend that you fill your sandbags up probably about a third of the way to allow for some room here. When you actually place the sandbags, though, you want to make sure that they're laid flat, and you can use your foot, you can stomp them, you can use a shovel. Make sure that they're flat and equal on all sides, and you kind of lay them like a brick. So you do one row, and then you offset the other row. Where you want to put those sandbags is around your home, not the perimeter of your entire property, but really your home is where you want to protect. You want to protect your home from water and debris coming in from the outside. So if you have a doorway, you don't want to obviously, close your door all the way. Maybe do a little semicircle of sandbags in a row around your doorway so you can still get out, but it'll divert that water from coming into your home. You want to do that in both the front door and the back door of your home. And that's really what the point is. You don't want mud or water in your home. Trimming and removing weakened tree branches, that's, of course, you want to do that now. Loose furniture items in your yard, make sure you secure those things now. And renter's insurance or homeowner's insurance for floods. If you have flood insurance or if you don't have flood insurance, you might want to get that. I don't believe it's part of the homeowner's or renter's insurance natural policy, so you want to seek that out. We have some places on our webpage that you can go to, or you can just do your own Google search on flood insurance. It's highly recommended that you do that. It's not something that's already covered, I don't believe, in your normal policies, so you might want to look into that. Some of the misnomer there is that, my home is flooded. What's the city going to do? Are they going to pay me money? We're not going to give money for private properties. If you have something that's impacted your home, it's your responsibility to protect your home, prepare your home, fix the problems, mitigate the problems, but also get the insurance for your home. I wouldn't wait till it starts raining. I would probably do that now so your premiums don't get higher, okay? While driving, a lot of times we'll see flooding incidents occur while we're driving. Try not to be a looky-loo and crank your neck. You don't want to be a victim. You don't want to be part of the problem. You want to be part of the solution. If you see something, you see somebody going in an impassable roadway, someone who's calling for help, always call 911. We recommend that you keep your car fueled and ready to go. You never know when the rain's going to just take off. We're going to get that, flash flood warning. It's going to dump, 2 inches in an hour. That's a lot of rain. Last thing you want to do is have to evacuate your property and you have no gas in your car. That's not a very good feeling. It's a very vulnerable feeling. So try and at least keep your car half full or full if you possibly can. Know your safe routes. If you know alternate routes, utilize those routes. If you know you live in a flood-prone area, you know that this intersection always floods, think about that before you get out there on the road. Observe all flood warning signs. People don't always seem to adhere to this. If you see road closed, flooding, don't go in here. Adhere to those signs. If you see people in there, try and encourage them to get out. A lot of times those people end up stranded, calling 911. Swiftwater rescue teams are activated, and it's a very labor-intensive and expensive response to extricate people out there. Not that they won't do it, but if it can be prevented, just like drowning, it can be prevented. So you want to try and adhere to those signs as much as you can. Don't attempt to cross any road. I've seen some videos lately on social media where people are like, I don't care, it's raining, I just need to get where I'm going. I'm late for work, or I'm late for this, or I'm just going to go right through there, and the next thing you know, they're caught in the middle of some flood area, and then they're way later than they wish they would have been. So don't do that. Don't act like you can get through there. Take another route. Take the extra time precaution. It could really save your life or save the life of somebody else. If you see a storm drain catch basin in the street that's not draining, let the Public Works Department know, and we put the phone number right there for you, 951-413-3160. Call Public Works and let them know, and they will send someone out to assess that and mitigate that problem. Okay, so again, as we evolve and as incidents come up, we're gonna be reassessing, we're gonna be reevaluating the strategy. We're gonna be working hard for you, the taxpayers. We're here to serve the public. So we're gonna be learning through this process like everyone else, but I do feel like we are very prepared at this point. We've been very proactive, and myself and the panel are available for any questions that you may have.
Good evening, everybody. I work for U-Haul. My name is Cindy Wilson, and we have our business here on Sunnymead Boulevard. And we've had several floods there recently during the rains, the heavy monsoon rains that we've had. What it is the way our property comes from off of the 60 freeway, slopes down to Sunnymead Boulevard. We're taking in all the rain off the freeway, and it's coming down through the back of our property. We have 680 storage rooms there, our customers, and we're about 96% occupied. So this last couple of rains, we had significant damage to customers' goods taking in rain that's come in, and it's come so fast and so deep that it's gone up underneath the doors. We reached out. Lisa actually has been contacting somebody from the city, has been talking to them about our drainage. We have maintenance guys that we have full-time, 3 maintenance guys. And they have gone through the drainage and snaked it, scoped it. We've done everything we can to find out where the problem's at. Now what's happening is the water is overwhelming. It's not being able to handle going out to the street. It's backing up on the street. It's coming back up onto the property and then back into our storage facility. And it's just coincidental that she's been working with somebody at the city talking to them, and they said that they've sent somebody out and that it's not the city's problem. It's U-Haul's problem. Well, now we're here because just a few weeks ago when she last spoke to them, now we get this information because she's on the city website that we do possibly have a problem. So we're just wondering where we go from here because we don't have much time. And we've been trying to do this for several months now. And now we're up against maybe days or weeks when this rain starts, and we need to get something done. We need to find out. I mean, U-Haul's a huge company. We've been in business for 72 years. If I need to dig and I need to put some contractors on it and get it fixed, it's better than 23 customers or 680 customers having flooded storage rooms. So I just want to know where I go. I'm sure if the city has a problem at the street, that it can be addressed and we can get this handled. So that's basically why we're here tonight.
Okay.
I'll share some contact information with you after the meeting. And,
Okay.
And then we'll follow up on that individual location,
Okay.
specific location.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? A couple of things I did, don't let the microphone scare you. I know nobody wants to go up there, believe me, I understand that. It's not scary though, right? We're here to answer any questions you might have. Even if you think it might be silly or controversial, we're here to answer the questions. 2 things I did think of while you were speaking. We are also created an insert, a flyer about preparedness efforts, some of the things that you saw here today, and with our webpage, once it's finalized. We have a 3rd mailer that's going to be going out in both the waste management bills and the Moreno Valley Public Utility bills that'll be coming out, I believe, around mid-November is when we're expected to see those come out, so in a couple of weeks. We did process those in both English and in Spanish to outreach the Spanish-speaking community as well, so I want to make sure that you know that that's available. We're also going to be putting the flyer on our webpage as well, so we can distribute that out for both uses, for English and Spanish, so I just want to throw that out there as well. Nobody has any questions?
I do.
Okay.
We're new to Moreno Valley. We've been here 2 years. So I haven't really got to experience much rain. This summer, we were driving down Cactus when I saw all these cars that were stopped, and I thought there was a traffic accident, and that's when I realized the flooding had happened. I leave extremely early in the morning. I want to know, we live over by Paris Lake. Is there certain areas that are prone to flooding? I mean, between here and the 60 freeway, I'm on Moreno Beach Boulevard. I have a small car. It's going to be, I leave at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's dark. I mean, I don't want to, if there's certain areas that kind of have a prone to major intersections, I'd like to kind of know what they are.
Absolutely, it's a great question, and I'm going to defer to Robert in just 1 second. But we did work with Public Works to create a map. It is going to be available on our webpage. We create a map that shows the known hotspot locations and the areas in the city that are known to flooding. And maybe that's one thing that I didn't hit on too much is the maps. We have a lot of maps. I'll let Robert elaborate more on some of the hotspot locations in the city that are prone to flooding, though.
So yes, as Aaliyah indicated, we will be having a map on the website. There are about half a dozen street segments within the city that we're aware of that typically require road closures. And so we're staging for those appropriately so that we can get those roads closed quickly. But we also want to put the information out to the public so that you're able to plan in advance and for alternate routes.
And there will be other maps as well, not just the known flood locations, but there's several maps on there. And we'll, afterwards, if you want, I can give you my business card and I can send you some information about that as well before the other website. Right? No, we can speak afterwards. And ma'am, right before I get to you, I think I saw the fire chief's hand go up.
Just wanted to point out that even though we have those known locations, we can't predict where the sale will affect the city most, where the impact would be most severe. So I would encourage everybody to abide by the road closure signs. Thank you. Hopefully I don't have to repeat that. To abide by the road closure signs, the slogan, turn around, don't drown. We'd like for everybody to remember that, particularly if you're commuting at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning when there are not a lot of vehicles on the roadway. So there may not be reports to the responsible agency to mitigate it. So abide by the road conditions and any street closure signs or any traffic breaks that law enforcement may have set up. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. I'm sorry, ma'am. And don't forget to talk into the microphone.
My name is Nancy. I think I'm directing this question to Robert. There is a previously known and identified hotspot near the intersection of Kalmia and Kitching. It's actually a little bit east of that intersection. There's a drain pipe that seems to drain water that's collected from public roads onto private property. I think you're at the show and tell version of that a couple of years ago. That collects a significant amount of water that drains onto the EMWD property. And then subsequently that large amount of water that, by the way, is approximately 30 feet wide and 2 feet deep, that's how much water there is, drains across several properties and then runs diagonally through an empty field through some other properties. Should I call you about that later to see what's been done about that or what can be done about that? I know this is not really a public forum, but I would like to see what has been or can be done about that because it does affect my property as well as many others.
Certainly. Go ahead and give me a call. I'll give you my contact information. In general, though, what I would say, the one thing that I would remind everyone is that the storm drain system within the city is really a network of various different systems. The city maintains system, private drainage systems, as well as other drainage systems. So the city, as Aaliyah mentioned, is working with property owners to maintain some of the private drainage systems, and some of that work, I think, will go towards some of your concerns, but we can discuss it in greater detail later.
Yes, I do want to point out that the Riverside County flood the engineers came out and looked at it. This has been presented to the Riverside County Flood Commission, and it is not a private drainage, it's a city drainage problem where the storm drain is not connected to anywhere except draining onto property.
We can look at it in detail and review it.
So don't leave after the forum, okay? We'll get your information and get you in contact with Robert. Okay. Any other questions anyone might have?
I know you've allowed for each homeowner to pick up 50 sandbags. I picked up 10 this morning because I'm terribly optimistic. But is there a formula? Is there some kind of knowledge we need to know about? Should we all pick up 50? Or should we pick up 20 or 10 or what?
Chief Williams, do you want to address that?
Sure. It would all depend on what it is that you're trying to accomplish, how big your property is, what you feel that might be the issue at hand when the water, what you're predicting to do. Are you trying to divert water, or are you just trying to block water? That's what we would look at. If you want 50, you're more than welcome to have 50. If you want 20, you can have 20. But if you're wanting to prepare for something, be prepared. You could take what you need. I mean, it all depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish.
I would
Is
say
that
that, I would say also, in addition to what Chief Williams is saying, is without knowing your specific property, we wouldn't be able to say there's an exact ratio, because we don't know, I mean, you know your property. Is it prone to flooding? Do you usually have a problem with flooding? Do you usually have a problem with trying to divert water? I've seen some property owners where they've not necessarily protected the perimeter of their actual structure, their actual house, but they've placed sandbags along the driveway to divert water from the street onward so it doesn't get onto their property. So it's just kind of a matter of where do you live? Is it an incline? Is it a sloped area? Have you had flooding there before? There's a lot of dynamics and variables, and I wish I could give you an exact ratio and answer. The truth is, I don't know, because I've had people come and say, 50 is just not enough. My house floods all the time. 50 is just not enough. What else can I do aside from, going to Home Depot, buying more sandbags? It's just the lay of the land. So it's very hard to say, you may only need 10 without knowing, again, what is your goals? What are you trying to accomplish? Where do you live? How often has your home flooded before? Have you diverted water? Has water gotten into your home before? Do you have a slope in your backyard? Do you see what I'm saying? There's a lot of variables. The best we can do is say there's up to 50 is what you can take. Do you think you'll need that much? It's kind of the homeowner's discretion. Chief Ahmad, did you have some more to add to that?
Yeah,
If you can talk into the microphone, sir, that'd be great.
Just wanted to point out, as a basic protective course of action would be to protect the openings to your home. So along the perimeter of the garage door openings, your man door to your rear garage, your rear sliders, and your front door, as a basic protective measure that I would encourage everyone to invest at least the 50 sandbags that they've been allocated to be placed in those general locations to keep water and mud flow from entering into your home. And then as a secondary course of action would be the pools or diverting water away from the driveway or the property if you have enough sandbags and people to help you, to assist you with placing them.
I can handle it. Okay, I'll go get some more. Thanks.
And just for measure, if you think about when I said, like Chief Ahmad said, and what I was referencing before, if you want to place some, you stack them, 2, 3 high, that's, around one doorway, that's what, 5, 6 per row, 6, 12, about 20 per entry, that's 20 right there. You times that by how many points of entry and exit you have in your property. Do you have a garage door, like you said, just a door and a back door? There's 20, 40, 60 easily. You can just calculate that. You know what I mean? So that's kind of I'd say go get more. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello. Yes, I live at the end of a street, and I've lived there for 24 years and never had any flooding. But I mean, if it was a major thing, I could see all this water coming on the street. And I was wondering if I were to put sandbags to divert the water from my property, and that caused flooding on the neighbor's property, am I going to be responsible for diverting that water?
Good question.
The answer is yes. There are liability issues, liability concerns if you divert water in such a way that you're diverting it onto someone else's property without their permission, and it causes damage.
Any more questions? Well, two other things I wanted to point out before we close. I do have law enforcement here and community development here. I know we've been asking Robert a lot of questions. But Alan Brock is the director, the department head of our community development department. So he oversees code enforcement, building and safety, and he has a significant role too, especially post-incident. And I wanted to give Alan an opportunity to discuss some of the things that they do in terms of damage assessment and some of the post-recovery type of things that occur after the event. And if you could also talk into the microphone.
I'll try to do that. Just putting me on the spot. I just want to let the community know that community development is a part of this process also, along with Aaliyah's shop, fire, PD, and of course Public Works. And our role will be, excuse me, post-assessment. If there is an event that occurs and there is damage incurred on your properties, building inspectors will be sent out as time permits, hopefully within either same day or next day, to assess your properties if there's been substantial damage. And we will work with you on that assessment. Basically, there's 3 colors involved. It's green, yellow, and red. You can probably figure out what that means. But green is, of course, go. It's all clear. Yellow is caution. There may be areas that we want you to stay out of. Red is the worst, of course. That means that it's not habitable. Your utilities will probably be affected in that manner. But that's kind of how the assessment works. We will then work with you if there is structural damage on permitting, if any permitting is required. We'll work with you on that to get you the proper permits and approvals ASAP, as quick as we can, so that you can get back into your house and get back to normal as soon as possible. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we do post-assessment when an event has occurred.
One point of clarification, thank you, Alan. One point of clarification, I talked about damage assessment teams in terms of volunteer. The way that will work is I would like to deploy the volunteers and myself and my staff out there to be that rapid initial assessment. It's take some pictures, get some information. What we do with that information is we actually make a database and a spreadsheet, funnel that over to Alan and his department so that he can do the follow-up and do the extensive, the comprehensive assessment afterwards. So we're trying to get that process done quicker. So just so you know how it flows, we're going to do the rapid assessment, give it to Alan, and he can go out there with his staff and do the extensive assessment. That's kind of the flow, so I wanted to clarify that. One additional thing I wanted to point out is we have Sergeant Nardone here from Moreno Valley Police Department. One of the things I wanted him to speak to you about is evacuations. So we do have incidents in the City of Moreno Valley that trigger evacuations, whether that's an evacuation site or a shelter site. The differentiation between the two is an evacuation site is somewhere you would go temporarily, 10, 12 hours at the most, to just a placeholder if you have nowhere else to go, no family or friends' houses that you can get to, maybe roads are impassable, a placeholder. Shelter is when we start setting up cots and blankets. It turns into an overnight 24-hour operation. And at the city level in the emergency management department, we have that availability to do that, to trigger that. We work with the sheriff's department, but the evacuations, the initiating the evacuations is usually kind of the harder part. And I'll let Sergeant Nardone talk about from the law enforcement perspective, what are they looking for if they tell you to evacuate? What does that mean in terms of voluntary or mandatory evacuations?
So we basically have 3 types of evacuations. We have what we call shelter in place, which is exactly what that is, shelter in place. So if we determine the safest place for you to be is to stay in your home, that's where we want you to do, is we want you to stay in your home. We don't need additional persons being out at these scenes. It just creates more of a problem to have additional persons at those. Then we have a voluntary evacuation. We come up, we knock on your door, we say, hey, there's a probability that something is going to happen. The flood, the water, the debris is going to come into this neighborhood, and we'd like you to voluntarily evacuate yourself. Then we have a mandatory evacuation where we say basically this is imminent. You are going to be impacted by whatever the disaster is, and we request that you leave your home. We cannot forcibly take you out of your home. We cannot do that. If it comes to the point where there's small children or some sort of issue where we feel there's a safety issue, then yes, we can step in, take the children, elderly, invalid, and move those persons out of the house. If we do have the mandatory evacuation, that is just a request. You, animals, valuables, leave the location. We will stay on site. We will keep people in the area to make sure no looting occurs. But that's basically when it's hitting the fan. That's when we want you out of there, is we have a mandatory evacuation.
Thank you, Sergeant. So does anyone have any more questions or anything to add, any comments? Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if this, just random, somebody that has a pool, do you
Mhm.
recommend that they empty it out some? If, do you foresee that maybe it'll overflow?
No, I don't think I would recommend that you lower the water level in your pool. Your pool will naturally overflow if it obviously gets filled, but your pool is typically designed to have water in it, so I'd rather you not remove the water. That's a good question.
All right, any other questions? Okay.
In case there was an evacuation, and we're 50, 60 miles at work away, we have dogs. I am set up on the mobile alert already. What can I expect as I come in? So, I mean, I'm 45 minutes easy, I mean, best scenario with no traffic, I'm 45 minutes.
Right.
But I've got dogs, and those dogs are important to me. So if I'm coming back into this community, am I gonna be able to get to the house? I mean, I know that may be a question that nobody can really answer, but due to the fact that I'm not familiar with this area and so much, more of a flat area like Glendale, Burbank.
Right. Let me start, and I know Sergeant Nardone, I'm going to defer this over to you, but in a, and I say this loosely, but in a perfect situation, if you're, or maybe not so perfect, we're evacuating your home. What we're going to try and do is work with the animal shelter to see if we have an evacuation center, we want to have both, a human shelter and an animal shelter in close proximity. A lot of times people won't leave their homes when their animals are in danger, and I know that to be true on many incidents that I've personally been on. But Sergeant Nardone, if you want to address that, if there's animals in the property and it's
Sure.
flooding, how do you want to do that?
The best thing to do would have some kind of plan in place. Neighbors, friends, family, somebody that's close that can be able to get the animals out of there. If we close an area and we deem that area unsafe, we are not going to let you back in. We can't have another emergency happen because we've let you go back in to get the animals and have a swift water rescue or some sort of rescue to go on. I would, try to, you can't predict these things. You don't know when they're going to happen. If you have someone in place that can take those animals somewhere for you, that'd be your best bet to do.
Okay. Well, that's all we have. I want to thank you for taking the time after your long and busy day to come and join us. I know there's hi, Mona. I'd be happy to talk with you afterwards. If you have no other questions, again, thank you for joining us today and getting prepared. Again, we're having another forum on Saturday, November 7th, to address the public again at the Senior Center at 10 o'clock in the morning. So if you want to, if you can, tell some people to come out, tell your neighbors, your friends or family, come out, listen to what we have to say. I'm hoping that you found it worth your time. We've been putting a lot of time and effort and resources into getting the city prepared and filling the mission of the city manager. And it's through the coordination of these departments here and other various city departments that we're able to do so. So I appreciate your time, and we are available offline after this to answer any questions. If you could stay as well, share your information, and ma'am, you as well, we'd appreciate that. Thank you very much.